I need a build for 3.14, but I'm not sure what to play. Something cheap and strong, something that can do all the endgame content, but I don't know what. Maybe I should just play Essence Drain Contagion again. But let's have a look. PoE 3.14 starter builds. There we go. Hey, this looks pretty good.
Hey guys, this is League-tastic Gamer 69, and in this video I'm gonna be showing off my 3.14 Ultimatum League starter. So this is a really great beginner-friendly build for League start. It revolves around the Headhunter leather belt, and once you get that item, then the build just really takes off. So yeah, if you wanna like and subscribe and follow me on Twitch, that'd be great. Thanks.
It's time to
Exsanguinate.
Hello everybody, this is Lolcohol, and in this video I'm going to be sharing my Exsanguinate Trickster Build. You might be thinking I should be using a Scion or an Elementalist. Well, yeah, but those builds already exist and I wanted to try something a bit different. The major benefit of this build is that it's self-cast, meaning that it's really easy to play, it's very easy to gear, and it has a super smooth leveling process. And thank you to Paul and everyone else in the community who helped this. This build had its ups and downs, but I feel like it's in a good place now and I'm happy to share it. What you're seeing in the background now is my level 89 or 90 Trickster doing some T16 maps and some 7-wave Maven boss encounters. And you can see the clear is really solid. The single target is respectable. This build is not a dedicated boss killer. It's not going to run around slaying depth 1000 alls, but it's enough that you will comfortably clear any T16 boss that you will come across. And after adjusting some of the damage, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to kill Cirrus with it, especially if you invest more into it. Let's have a look at the build. I'm going to start with the gems. I'm not going to go over every single link, but I just want to explain what each of these gem setups do. So first off, we have Exsanguinate. This is going to be our main damage dealer and clear spell. It's pretty similar to Arc. It shoots out a little spray of blood. And when linked with Chain, this will cause it to chain throughout mobs. So you'll hit a little pack here and it'll kind of jump around and spread throughout the mobs. So Chain is amazing for clear. When I do single target though, I'm swapping out Swift Affliction. Just simple as that. If you want, you can keep Chain on, but adding the Swift Affliction really adds a lot more single target. As for the other links, these all just add a bit more damage. Let's have a look at our aura setup. So I'm using Malevolence, Pride, Herald of Purity, linked with a level 3 Enlighten. We're able to run all of these auras together because of some of the points that we've allocated on the tree, but these just overall increase our damage output. Next, we have a Corrupting Fever setup. So Corrupting Fever applies Corrupting Blood stacks to enemies every time you hit them, and all the links, once again, Swift Affliction, Brutality, Efficacy, these all just add more DPS. So every time you're hitting with Exsanguinate, you're applying a stack of Corrupting Blood to the enemy, which is really nice for bosses and just clear in general. Next up, I am using Flame Dash, Smoke Mine, and Second Wind. This just allows us to move more quickly, get through the map more quickly, like that. As for our Curse on Hit setup, I'm using Void Sphere. What's nice about this is we have Void Sphere linked with Hex Touch and Vulnerability. So anything that gets hit by this Void Sphere is not only going to get sucked in toward the middle, which is very nice for Ultimatum because that tends to be very swarmy content. So that provides a defensive layer, but it also curses everything that it touches. And as for the last link, Culling Strike, this will kill enemies that have 10% life or lower, which means that it's very nice for killing bosses. I'm also thinking that if I can get an additional curse chest, I might swap this out for temp chains or something like that just to improve the survivability. But for now, this is the setup I'm running and it's nice. Over here, I have War Banner, which I'm not using, and I'm keeping my chain over here just so I can easily swap it between these to set up so I can do single target. And that is it for the gem setup. So we have Void Sphere, Corrupting Fever, Exsanguinate, and our movement skills, and then Herald of Purity, Pride, and Malevolence. So it is very straightforward. You don't have to worry about golems, and you don't have to worry about spell slinging. It's just run, click, dead simple. As for the gear, once again, the gear is very straightforward. We're prioritizing life and resistances. Same on our ring, life, resistance. This is a very budget version, just by the way. So all of this is going to cost under 2x. As you can see, the belt, life, resistance. Gloves, I'm using Apothecary gloves because this does increase damage over time. I should have explained it, but Exsanguinate has an initial hit damage, but then it also deals damage over time. You can see 190,000 physical damage per second. So having things that increase damage over time is good. Boots, I'm using a series step. I think you could use something else if you want. This does help with survivability, I suppose. I did try this build with phase acrobatics and acrobatics, and I used this to increase it, and I just haven't changed it. But these also have very high evasion, and once I go through the Ascendancy, I will explain why that is nice. Amulet, well, the main thing you want to get on this is just life and spell damage and things like that. And if you're lucky, you can get +1 level of all physical skill gems. This will increase the overall level of your Exsanguinate, which has the physical tag. We're also using Crown of the Inward Eye. This says that increases and reductions to max energy shields also apply to spell damage at 30% of their value. This is very nice for damage. Spell damage scales our damage because we're using a spell, so spell damage is good. And also Transfiguration of Mind. Increase and reductions to max mana also apply to damage at 30% of their value. The max life one is not as important because we're not doing attack damage, but if you go the spell slinger variety, this might even be better. Weapons. Cold Iron Point. We're just using this for the +3 level of all physical spell skill gems. Increasing the level of our Exsanguinate increases the damage. So these are a perfect fit. If you want to get all fancy, you could upgrade these, but I think the only better weapon than this is going to cost several exalts, whereas this Cold Iron Point costs about 10 chaos at most. So this is the perfect budget option for this build. Next up, Flasks. I'm just using a Panic Divine Flask of Staunching, Witchfire Brew. This is great. This increases our damage over time and applies Despair Curse Aura during effect. I'll explain this in a moment. There is something very important you need to do if you want to use this flask. Moving on, Roomies. Again, this is sort of a remnant of me experimenting with block versions of the build. It's not 100% necessary, but it does add survivability. And then a Quicksilver Flask of Adrenaline and a Jade Flask. You could instead use a Quartz Flask instead of a Jade Flask, but I'm using this. Also for bosses, I'll sometimes swap in a second Life Flask just so that I don't run out of charges and I can not die. Let's have a look at the tree. This is pretty straightforward. We're mainly going for life and damage and then physical damage. So things that increase physical damage will increase our Sanguinate damage because this does physical damage. So things like Master of Force gives us increased physical damage. And of course, we also want to scale damage over time because this is a damage over time skill. So things like Growth and Decay, increased damage over time multiplier. These are all very useful. Then, this is very important, and again, thank you, Paul, for this. Whispers of Doom, you can apply an additional curse. This is very important if you want to use Witchfire Brew. What Witchfire Brew does is it grants a curse aura. So this will override your vulnerability, and if you don't have Whispers of Doom, the Despair Curse Aura will actually drop your damage because the vulnerability adds more damage than the Despair Curse Aura. So if you don't have Whispers of Doom, do not use this flask, but it's literally just 3 points and you get this and your damage jumps quite significantly just from using that. Now let's speak about all of the aura things. So we are getting Influence also because we want to get reduced reservation. We've got that over there, reduce reservation. Down here, we have charisma, which is again, reduce reservation, and leadership, which is again, reduce reservation. That, along with enlighten, allows us to run our triple aura setup. The rest of the tree is pretty much just life, an energy shield, and a jewel socket, and a bit of energy shield. And over here we have veteran soldier, which is life and physical damage, relentless, physical damage, and then over here just more life. And on my amulet I have anointed vanquisher. What this does: crush enemies for 4 seconds when you hit them while they're on full life, and 40% increased physical damage. So more physical damage is great for the build. Next up is our large cluster jewel setup. So I am using an 8 passive, 12% increased fizz damage large cluster. And there are quite a few notables that are good for this build, but I managed to roll Furious Assault, which is 8% cast speed and 25 increased physical damage. And Master the Fundamentals, increased physical damage, 10 to all resistance. If you can get 3 notables, of course that would be better, but just take what you can afford. I'm then also using medium cluster jewels with the damage over time multiplier, or you can use the physical damage over time multiplier one. And for that, I've got Student of Decay. This is increased damage over time, and the chaos resistance is of course great. And Wasting Affliction. Increased damage with ailments, and damaging ailments deal damage 10% faster. Same on this side. There are other notables that are good. I have outlined those in the spreadsheet, so you can check those out. It's not like you have to get these exact ones for it to be functional. But that is pretty much it for the tree. Just life, physical damage, cluster jewels, bit of energy shield, bit of jewels. It's nothing fancy, it's all straightforward. Having a look at the Ascendancy, we are grabbing Patient Reaper. This makes our sustain excellent because every time we kill something, we get mana, energy shield, and life. And increased recovery rate if you've killed an enemy affected by your damage over time recently, which is pretty much always so. We pretty much always have 70% increased recovery rate. Prolonged Pain has some benefits, but the main thing is 20% more damage over time, which adds a ton of damage. And then we are moving over to Ghost Dance. I'm not going to read these to you, but essentially these add a ton of survivability and stun immunity and energy shield and all that good stuff. So we're going this route. Don't be like me. Don't take Harness the Void. I thought, hey, this is sweet. This adds tons of damage. So much extra chaos damage. And then I realized, well, Paul pointed it out that I'm using Brutality, which says supported skills deal no chaos damage. So don't do that. And the order in which we are getting this is first Ascendancy, second Ascendancy, third, fourth. As for the playstyle, it's going to be very straightforward. At the start of the map, you want to hit your Corrupting Fever. This will refresh as you spend life. So Exsanguinate costs life, so it'll pretty much always be up unless you have a 9-second break in between killing packs, which is not very common. So you put that down. In ultimatums, you'll drop a Void Sphere, which kind of sucks monsters and keeps them away from you. And then you'll just hit them with Exsanguinates. It's very simple. And just use your Smoke Mines to dodge. As for bosses, pretty much the same thing. Give them a few slaps with the Exsanguinate, and then let the damage over time do some work and run around them, and then slap them again. You don't have to stand still just constantly hitting them. You can, but if you're scared of dying, you can just do 3 stacks and then kind of run around and dodge them a bit. This is the leveling sheet that I was speaking about. So I mainly leveled with Stormblast Mine up until I think Act 2 or 3. You can follow this, it'll show you where you're going to get everything. But if you follow this, it will help you, and it is a very, very smooth leveling process. Also, here is the shopping list. I list out all the items that you need for the build, and you just need to click this link and it'll bring it up. And then at the bottom, you can see the average price. So the build is about 1 to 2.5x. And further at the bottom, I have a low life defensive version, which I have not tested. So if you want to do this, try it at your own risk. It is more expensive. The damage is lower, but it has far more survivability. So if you're ripping a bit, maybe you can give this a try. And if you've got 6x that you can just gamble with, let me know. Before we go, I just want to show you the POB. So this has all of the staggered leveling. So you can see 10 points, 20 points, 34 points, all the way up to max level. I've also provided a tree without cluster jewels, so if you're leveling and you can't quite afford these yet, there's an alternative route. If you can afford the clusters, you can go that way. And then at the bottom, I've also provided my experimental low-life defensive tree. This uses shields and block. It has far more life and far more energy shield than the other version. Let me just equip the defense gear. Yeah, you can see it's got 6.2 thousand life and 3.3 thousand energy shield. I haven't tried this myself, but I imagine it would be pretty good. Also, while I'm here, you can see I have defensive gear and DPS gear. So if you are going to do the defensive low life tree, just make sure to check out the low life gear as well. And all the skills and things are listed here. Ignore the petrified blood unless you are playing the low life version, but otherwise, hopefully this is enough to help you make it through the leveling very smoothly. So while some gameplay plays in the background, let's just talk about the pros and cons. I would say the pros are that this is cheap, it has great clear, it's very fast and mobile, and it has awesome smooth leveling. It's very straightforward and beginner friendly, and it has decent single target. You will be able to clear T16 map bosses very comfortably on this build. And the fact that this isn't a Scion means that the first 30 points of the build aren't just going to be 10 strength. So leveling is easier for newer players, and you can also scale this very nicely with more investment. I've done some sort of theory crafting thing, and you can get the damage probably about 7 or 8 times higher than what you see here if you spend enough money. As for the cons, this version of the build, even though I have about 5,700 life and ES combined, you can just get straight up one shot, especially if you push it too far. If you overjuice T16 maps, sometimes you'll just get absolutely wrecked. The single target, again, it's great for map bosses, and you will be able to kill conquerors, but it's not going to be the most insane single target you've ever seen before. So if you are focusing on things like Legion, by the way, this build is amazing for Legion, then this is a great option. Whereas if you want to do Cirrus carries for other players, then this is not going to be the right build for you. So I'm just being straightforward with you and honest. This is a clear build primarily that can kill bosses if it has to, but primarily it is focused at things like clearing ultimatums and legions and other content like that. That is going to be it for this video. If you have any other questions, be sure to ask in the comments below or ask me live on Twitch at twitch.tv/Lolcohol. And check the description below for the path of building link, as well as the leveling spreadsheet and the shopping list. You can also find links to those in the path of building itself under the notes section. And that's it. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Let me know what you think of this build. Have you tried Exsanguinate? What do you think? And take care. Stay safe. Catch me on Twitch. Bye. Have a good day. See ya.
Divine power! Divine power! It's ranching, Exile. You're making me nervous.